Right, hello everyone. How is everybody today? Happy Thursday. I know we missed our YouTube live yesterday because we were on Whatnot. So if you joined us on Whatnot, I hope you had a wonderful time and hopefully you got some great deals. I know you got some great deals if you were there. So welcome in today. I am going to go ahead and pull up our chat, see what you guys are chit-chatting about here and see who's with us. Oh, you guys, not too many people in just yet, but we'll give you guys a little couple more seconds here to jump in, and hopefully you're getting the notifications. But today I'm actually going to be working on my own nails today. So if you take a look, you guys can see, come in nice and close, my nails are in desperate need. I'm at about 4 weeks here with my fills. They've been growing out for 4 weeks. I redid my other hand, so I'm going to show you guys exactly how I did my nails on my other hand here. So welcome, welcome. Glad you guys are all joining us today. Hopefully you are excited to see some real nails not on the trainer hand, and we're going to just jump right in. So I'm going to show you two different nails. So on my first nail, I just have basically our Cover Pink gel, our concealer pink. We've got Cover Pink acrylic concealer pink gel and a gel polish over my first nail. And then I'm going to show you how to change out that dimensional nail so that we can have a little bit of kind of fun Halloween kind of colors and a little bit more fall colors. Now, you guys, don't get me wrong, I absolutely loved my mixed metal nails. And if you want to see how I did these, we do have a demo, a video here on our YouTube channel showing you guys exactly how to do those. But today we're going to switch it out. We're going to change it out to some purples and greens and some of my favorite colors. So again, we're going to be working on two nails. So I'm going to start with my prep. And the prep that I'm always going to do is starting with pushing back the cuticles. Now you guys, you're going to notice that I don't spend a ton of time pushing back my cuticles, just really a few seconds. And I'm only going to be working on two nails here today, but just so you guys can really see how quick and easy the prep is, I'm going to go ahead and push back the cuticles on the rest of my nails. Because we'll see. I'm planning on doing two nails. If we have extra time, maybe we'll do another one. But I think we're only going to have time for the two nails. But that's all you really need to do to push back your cuticles, because I'm going to go through with the electric file and I'm going to actually clean up all of that dead protein growth. You guys, you can see there is a lot of cuticles stuck to my nail. If I wanted to spend time, I could use the back side of my magic wand and I could go through and I could clean that all up, but that's not necessary. That's actually just going to spend more time and waste time that you don't need to do with the cuticle pusher, okay? Now for our first nail, this is a solid color, just like my thumbnail here. It is a solid color underneath my gel polish. So what we're going to do, we're going to remove the gel polish and we're going to fill in that cuticle area. On our second nail, we're actually going to remove all of the product, basically down to our base layer, and we're going to redo the design. Now, for me, it's a lot easier. Instead of going through and filing off all of the different glitter in there, I'm actually going to use my toenail clippers, and I'm just going to clip off that free edge, and we're going to resculpt. Now, you guys, I was out in the garden. I don't know why my trees are getting so much green on me today, but that green is from my garden, from my trees. It is not any greenies. It's not bacterial infection. So just know that. But what I am going to do is I'm just going to clip off that free edge. And the reason that I'm looking from the back side of my nail when I'm clipping, not from the front side, is I actually want to see where my hyponychium is. I want to be able to see where that skin is. So as I'm clipping, I'm not cutting down into that hyponychium. So we're going to cut right there. We're going to take one clip on one side. We're going to do a second clip on the other side. And that way I don't have to file all of that product off of that free edge. All I have to do is file off right through the body of the nail, okay? All right, so let me grab our dust collector. And you guys, if you haven't seen, we do have a new dust collector. It's similar to last year's dust collector, but this one doesn't have all the bling on it. You can kind of see over here my light does. So this one is a nice clean white look to it, but it is still the same great dust collector. So when I'm filing, I always want to make sure that I'm using my dust collector to take all of that extra dust out of my breathing zone. And you guys, I am using our new e-file today. So if you haven't seen our new e-file, or if you haven't seen the sale video yet, you are absolutely going to love our new e-file. I am going to start with my safety bit coarse. So we're going to tuck that right in there. So my safety bit coarse, it is a coarse carbide bit, but it does have a rounded top to it. Now, a lot of times when I'm working on my clients or I'm working on the trainer hand, I'll use my X cut, but when I'm working on myself, I want that little bit of extra security that I'm not going to get too close to my cuticles. Because sometimes when I'm working on myself, I don't have the correct balance that I would have when I'm working on an actual person. So that's why I prefer the safety bit coarse when I'm working on myself. Now you guys, I want to turn the electric file on here. And our new electric file has a foot pedal. So you can see both my hands are here in camera. When I press on the foot pedal, I actually have to make sure that it is plugged in. Hang on a second. All right, you guys. I'm having a technical difficulty. Oh. All right, hang on a second, guys. All right, well, I think my cords are, something is not plugged in here, and I'm not sure what is going on. Oh, you guys, I know what it was. I had my speed set at 0. That's why it didn't turn on. But here we go, you guys. Let me show you this. With our new electric file, this does have a foot pedal. So you have the option to use either the foot pedal or just the hand dial. But when I turn that on with the foot pedal, I know you guys can't see the foot pedal, but when I turn that on with the foot pedal, you'll notice that it starts rotating and I don't have to actually push a button using my hand. So it's nice and convenient, nice and easy. And the other great thing, well, there's a lot of great things about this new e-file, but you guys, I don't know if you normally can hear my file on camera, but this one, I cannot hear a single thing. This e-file is so quiet. It is absolutely amazing. So if you're needing a new e-file, you are absolutely going to love this one. Super, super quiet. But I am going to turn on my dust collector, and that way all of that dust from my filing is going to go right down into the dust collector. Now, you guys, let's start with our first nail here. Even though we cut this one down, all I'm going to start with, I'm going to turn my speed up to about 15,000 RPMs. And, oops, there we go. Okay, just want to make sure you guys are able to see this. So I'm going to just work right through removing that gel polish from my nail. And you guys, it's going to be kind of tricky to work on myself and stay in camera here, but I'm going to do the best that I can. Make sure that, I'm going to bring my camera out just a little bit. It's looking like it's getting just a little bit. Okay, there we go. I think that'll be better. It was looking like it wasn't quite a clear picture on the screen there. So I'm just going to go through gently removing all of that gel polish, removing that color. And you guys, I'm not going to worry too much about that color that's down on my free edge. Let's see if I can get it. There we go. Because when I do just a fill, all I'm going to do is fill in that cuticle area. I'm not going to be really filling in over that free edge. So I just want to make sure that I'm removing that color from the area that I'm going to be working on, that area that I'm going to be filling. Okay, so just going through and kind of feathering through the surface of that nail. I'm not grinding away the product. I'm just gently removing that gel polish. And you guys, I'm trying to stay in camera here, make sure that you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. Now, a lot of times when I work on a real client, I have a lot more precision. So let me show you guys this one. On a real client, I tend to work in more of kind of a circular motion, removing all of that product, removing that gel polish, just because it's a lot easier. So you can kind of see I'm working with my bit in more of that circular motion. And that is going to really quickly and easily remove all of that gel polish. And then I'll work right up around that cuticle. Now, when I'm working on myself, I do tend to work in some different angles than I do on an actual live person. So just know that it is going to be a little bit different when you're working on a real person versus if you're working on yourself, okay? All right, so at this point, I want you guys to take a look here. Now, my nails have been on for, like I said, about 4 weeks. So I do have just a very slight crack right in the corner here. My nails have definitely grown out. My arch has kind of grown out, and that placement, that thick stress area has grown out. And so I do need to build up my stress area a little farther back here. So that's why I've got that little bit of a crack right in the corner. And I have just a tiny little hairline lift right at the edge here. So to get rid of that, anytime you're doing a fill, you always want to make sure that you're filing off any of that lifted product that you see, okay? So I'm just going to go through, I want you guys to see this really quick. I am going to be filing. I'm not going to be filing over the whole surface. I'm going to keep the edge of my bit right at the back edge of where that product is lifted, because what's going to happen is as I file, it's basically going to just break right through where that product is lifted, okay? So I'm not going to file over that product. I'm going to file behind the lift, okay? And as I'm removing that lifting, I'm kind of going back to that feathering motion. Now notice that I don't just grind away, grind away, grind away. I do that feathering motion so that way, just like that, you see how that little piece just kind of broke away? This way, I'm not going to damage that natural nail. I'm not filing over that natural nail, and that little bit of lifted product has released. I think the rest of my cuticle area is good here. So that is how we're going to prep our first nail. And you guys, I think I'm going to go through and I'm going to fill this one, and then we'll go through and we'll do the second one. So that way you can see the process on both of them. You'll be able to see that process all the way through. Okay. All right. So to finish the rest of our prep here, I now need to prep that natural nail. I need to clean up that cuticle area. So I'm going to switch my bit from our safety bit Coarse, and I am going to grab my Mandrel and a medium grit sanding band. Now you guys, I'm going to change out my sanding band here. So I'm going to take that one off. And this is just the sanding band that I used on my other hand. But I want you guys to always know that when you're working, you do want to make sure that you are using a brand new sanding band for every service, so that you always have a nice clean sanding band, a sanitary sanding band. So I'm going to slide that one on. Now our sanding bands do come pre-beveled, so they don't have a really sharp edge around that top. But if you do feel like you need to kind of take off and soften that edge, you can always take your bit and just do a quick 1, 2, 3 tap on your other file, and that's going to soften up that edge a little bit so you can work a little bit closer into your cuticle area. Now let me come in nice and close so you can see. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the surface of that product, and if I do still have that little bit of a hairline lift, oh, you guys, I'm going to turn my speed down here real quick. I'm going to turn my speed to about 4,000 to 5,000 RPMs on our new E-file. And I'm going to prep the surface of that acrylic, or the gel. You guys, I have gel on my nails, sorry. I'm going to just gently feather through, and if I need to blend in any edges of that product, if anything was lifting, you can kind of see I just go around the edge of that product to blend that all down to my natural nail. We removed that little lifted corner there, so everything is good. Now I'm just going to feather my bit all the way through to just create a little bit of texture over that gel. Again, you guys, when I'm working on myself, I do have to kind of work in a little bit different angles here. Now, I also want to take a quick look. I've just got a little corner here I want to grab there. I want to make sure that I am prepping this area with that little crack. So I'm just going to go right in kind of at a slight angle. You guys, I'm coming in at an angle like this. Normally, I would not use my E-file at an angle, but I'm just trying to create a little, almost a notch right into the gel so that I can fill in that cracked area, okay? Once I have the rest of that nail prepped, I've removed all that texture, clean that off. I'm going to go up around my cuticle area and I'm going to remove the shine from that natural nail. So we're just going in short little strokes all the way around that cuticle area, right up into the cuticle. tucking in. And you guys, you can see that my bit is getting all the way right up into that cuticle area. And then again, just going to kind of feather through, making sure I've gently removed the shine from that natural nail. Okay. Okay. At this point, I'm going to turn my finger around here. I just want to get that little edge right down there. At this point, I do like to go through with one other bit. And that other bit is, this one is our Diamond Cuticle Square bit. And I absolutely love using this one right up around my cuticles because this is going to tuck right up in there. I'm still at about 4,000 to 5,000 RPMs, but now you're going to be able to see I'm really prepping that natural nail, getting all of that dead cuticle cleaned out of that cuticle area. So this is how I really get in there and detail my cuticles before I do my fill, okay? All right, so we've got our nail prepped. Let's go ahead and turn off our dust collector. Nice and quiet now. Okay, we'll just dust off that nail. And as I'm dusting backwards. I'm pushing that cuticle back. I'm pushing that cuticle up. And I'm just going through kind of checking, making sure I do have just a tiny little edge right there that I want to grab real quick. So I'm going to go back to my e-file and I'm just going to clean up that little edge. And again, you guys, it's always hard to work on yourself and get the proper angles. So you just kind of sometimes have to turn your hand into different angles and work in a little bit different way. Okay, I think we're good there. I got that. Next thing we're going to do is I'm going to grab my swipe. Swipe is our cleanser. I'm going to take a little bit of swipe onto my manicure brush and I'm going to go through and I'm going to give that nail a really good scrub. And that's going to clean off any dust from the nail, any germs that might be on my nail plate, and it's going to give me a nice clean dry surface to apply my product to. Okay. Now I want you guys to see this really close. Do you see how right up by my cuticle area it looked wet? I'm going to exaggerate this for you guys. So see how nice and clean and wet right now it looks? It's going to start to dry out. And once that nail is dry, it's going to go back to kind of a chalky dry look. So now you're starting to see that swipe dry off of the nail. Once that nail is completely dry, then we can go into our protein bond. Now protein bond, you guys, I'm going to readjust the camera here. Protein bond is our bonder, and this is going to work like a double-sided tape. So I'm going to just tap off some of the extra because I don't need a lot of this. All I need to do is apply my protein bond right at my cuticle area on that natural nail. I usually put a little bit more through the rest of the body of the nail just to give it a little bit of a tacky surface, but it only really needs to be on that natural nail. And I do tap out that extra so that I'm not flooding my product onto my nail. So I start a little ways away from the cuticle, touch my brush down, give it kind of a wiggle up to the cuticle, and then pull down the sides. So again, this way I'm not flooding that product onto my skin. And just kind of feather that, blend that out through the rest of the surface of the nail. Now, if you're working on a full set, you're going to go through, do your prep on all 10 nails, or if you're just working on yourself, all 5 nails on one hand. And then you can come back and then we'll do a second coat. Anytime I'm working with enhancements, I always like to do 2 coats of my protein bond to really make sure I'm going to have great adhesion. So 2 coats of protein bond, and I think I'm going to touch a little bit right through that little area that I'm going to put a little more product to fix that crack on my nail. And we're going to grab our products. So the products that I'm going to be using for this nail, we're going to be using our, oops, not our clear sculptor. We're going to be using our concealer pink. And you guys, this one is our concealer pink gel in the Precision Applicator tube. I'm also going to be using our concealer pink base gel. So I'm going to start with the base. And let me find my brush here. I'm going to grab this is our Finesse Pro brush. It comes in 2 pieces like you saw. It's got the one piece so that you can pop that out, and it's got a handle for your brush and it's got a cover for your brush, so it's nice and easy to work with. So when I'm working with my base gel, now we have the pink base that I'm going to use now. And then for my other nail, we're going to use our clear base. And I'll show you that in a little bit. But anytime I'm working with my concealer pink gel, I do like to stick with the concealer base or concealer pink base. I'm just going to give my brush a quick wipe out, make sure there wasn't any dust on there. I'm going to take my brush, I'm going to just kind of tap that back to a little bit more oval shape. I'm going to just kind of drag my brush through that gel, pick up just a little bit. That's even more than what I need. So I'm going to kind of wipe out a little bit of that gel. And we're going to start by just brushing on a nice thin layer. Now the base gel is different from the rest of our gels. This is the only gel that we're going to do in a really, really thin layer. The rest of them we're going to use to kind of build up structure a little bit more. But the base gel is designed with the most resins in it, so that's going to have the best adhesion. So you never want to skip your base gel, okay? This is what's going to help everything bond really well to that nail, okay? Now I am also going to put a little bit of base right down in that area that I'm going to fix, so that little cracked area. Now at this point, I do need to cure my nails. So let me bring the camera back out. At this point, I am going to cure my nails for 30 seconds. So a minimum of 30 seconds to allow that base gel to set, okay? If you're working on a real client and you're working on the other hand, I would do all of the nails, put your base gel on all of the nails, put that into the light and cure it for a full 60 seconds. That's a full cure with any of our gels. So 60 seconds is a full cure. But as I'm working just on either one nail or one hand, by doing the quick 30-second freeze, that's going to set the base layer into place, but the product is going to continue to cure as we add our layers in, okay? So that was just our base gel. Now we're going to go back to our concealer pink. And one other thing I'm going to grab, I always like to have my little art palette here. It's just a little ceramic tile, you guys. It's not anything fancy. But I like to have this here in case I need to clean out my brush. If I have any product in my brush, if maybe I get a little piece of lint on my brush, I can use that tile to clean out my brush. All right. And we are going to be using our concealer pink in the Precision Applicator tube. And if you are a beginner, I absolutely love these tubes because I think they're a lot easier to apply your product. So when I'm doing a fill, all I'm going to do is I'm going to squeeze out just a little bit of that gel. And you guys, really all we're trying to do is refill this back cuticle area and then build up our arch a little bit. And then I am going to fix that little notch right in the corner there. So I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of that product, just kind of a little horseshoe shape right up into my cuticle area. Now notice that I do leave a little bit of space between my product and my cuticle. I want to make sure that that product is not touching skin, okay? If you get your product on your skin, that's usually where you're going to have lifting issues. Now I want you guys to see this. When I'm applying the product, I do squeeze it out of the tube, but I use my brush to kind of work that up into the cuticle area. So I'm working in a counterclockwise circular motion and I'm staying on the surface. You guys, if you take a look from the side view, you can see I'm staying on the surface of the product. I'm not putting pressure like I did with my base gel, okay? Here we want to leave the bulk of the product. So again, I'm just kind of working in that circular motion or kind of a back and forth motion to just touch that product up towards my cuticle area and then just gently bringing that down the edge, okay? I'm going to come back to the center. I'm going to kind of push that product a little bit closer to my cuticle, again, keeping it from touching, and then just that circular motion down the right side, making sure that I get product all the way to the edge. Now, you guys, you can see my hand kind of shook just a little bit. I'm going to grab my, let me grab a clean orange wood stick here. I'm going to grab my orange wood stick, and I do want to make sure that if I do accidentally touch that product to the skin, make sure that you clean that off the skin right away. That way you're not going to worry about issues with contact dermatitis or things like that. So always make sure if you accidentally get that product on the skin, do clean that off right away. Try to avoid skin contact as much as possible though, okay? I'm going to take a look at this nail from the side and I'm going to pull a little bit of that bulk. You can see how kind of thick and bulky it was up at that cuticle area. I'm going to bring a little bit more of that forward and that's going to help to replace the arch of my nail and reposition that. Okay. And you guys, on the side here, notice that as I was working over the surface, I was using the flat part of my brush. On the side, I'm actually going to use more of the point of the brush because I do want to bring a little bit more of that product down to the edge. Now I do have that little crack in the nail that I am going to fix up here in just a second, but I do want to set this into the light and I want to freeze this into place. So I could do one of two things. I could either go back into the light like I was showing you guys earlier, but just so you can see that we are curing this, whoops, wrong way. I'm just going to use my Touch Cure Light to kind of freeze this into place. And you guys, what the Touch Cure Light is, actually, I'm going to go ahead and put that into the light while I show you. So the Touch Cure Light is a small little pen light, and if we tap the end of that, it turns the light on. So I can use that light to kind of freeze this product into place to stop that product from moving. Otherwise, I can put that into the light like we were doing earlier with our base layer. Okay, so that does need to cure for a 30-second cure, at least 30 seconds. And then I'm going to go ahead and reapply a little bit more product into that cracked area. Okay, so again, we've got that on for 30 seconds. Oops, my light turned off here. All right, so after 30 seconds, we're going to go ahead and take that out. And again, you guys, I've got that little cracked area right on the side there. Let me come in nice and close so you can see. And if you're just joining us and you're seeing that dark area on the point of my nail, that is just gel polish. So I didn't fully remove all the gel polish, but to fill in that little cracked area, I'm just going to squeeze out a little bit of that gel. Grab my brush and just kind of feather that product down into that little crack. And that's going to help to fix that little cracked area. If I want to, I can blend that product up to my arch a little bit more if I feel like I want to build up my arch a little bit more. And then we'll go ahead and pop that back into the light one more time. And you guys, this point, I would normally go through and I would do a full 60-second cure. But because we're going to be doing our second nail, I'm going to show you guys how to change out that gold to the kind of purple design that I've got. Normally I would keep the hand in the light for the full 60 seconds, but because we're going to be working on the second hand as well, the first one is going to cure as we are working on the second one. So I'm not going to keep this in the full 60 seconds, but just know that that product does need a full 60 seconds in the light to cure. Okay. All right, now once that nail does fully cure out, you're going to use the swipe and you're going to pump a little bit of that swipe onto our lint-free wipe and we're going to cleanse that nail. The product does have a slightly tacky surface to it, so you want to make sure that you are cleansing that nail before you do any of your filing and finishing. Okay? All right, you guys, let's go on to our second nail. And our second nail, we're going to change out from that gold. We already cut that nail short. We already pushed back the cuticles. We're going to change that out to purple now. So I'm going to go back to my electric file. And when I use my electric file, I want to make sure that I'm using my dust collector to keep that dust out of my breathing zone. I'm going to change out my bit back to my medium grit sanding, or sorry guys, not my medium grit, my safety bit Coarse. Tuck that one right in there. We're going to turn our E-file up to about 15,000 RPMs. And we'll just turn on that dust collector. Don't forget that. And, all right. So then we're just going to go through and kind of like I was doing earlier in that circular motion, we're going to work through the whole body of the nail and take down that product. Okay, so as you're working, you want to make sure that you're working in different areas. So that's kind of why I do a little bit more of that circular motion, kind of work around the nail. And you guys, I actually think I probably need a new bit. This one feels a little bit on the dull side. So if your bit doesn't feel like it's taking that product down quickly, make sure to change out your bits. And I have one, but it's tucked away in a drawer here, so I'll change that out for the next time. but just kind of circular motions, feathering through, taking down all of that product. Come in a little closer, you can see as I'm working. And with this nail, I do have a couple of coats of the base gel underneath my color. And then I also have a little bit of gel polish underneath the glitter. So as I'm taking down my product, I'm kind of keeping those things in mind. So as I work, let me dust my hand off a little bit here so you can see. So as I work and take down that glitter, I'm getting to those areas where that glitter has been removed, but I still have that little bit of gel polish. That's where I'll go through and just gently kind of feather through. And that's going to take down that gel polish all the way to that natural nail. Okay? Or actually not to the natural nail, sorry guys, down to my base layer of gel. So I'm not going all the way down to my natural nail. When you're doing your change outs like this, it is important that you're not filing down to that natural nail. You don't want to be causing any damage to that natural nail. So now you can see that as I'm kind of breaking through that gel polish, I can still see that layer of base gel on my nail. So I know that I'm still not going all the way to my natural nail and causing damage. Okay? And just kind of feathering through, getting those last little bits. And I do see a little tiny little bit of lifting right up there. So again, just kind of feathering that bit through. But again, as I'm filing off any lifted product, I'm working behind that lift. I'm not working over the surface here. I'm keeping my bit behind it. So it basically will cut that lift right off where it's starting. Now you guys remember, lifting to a big degree is not a normal thing. I have let my nails go for about 4 weeks. I have been doing some home construction, so I have been very rough on my nails. So that is why I probably have just that tiny little bit of lifting around there. Normally I don't really have much lifting. So just make sure if you do have that lifted product that you do fully remove that before you continue your prep, okay? All right, we're gonna go back to our medium sanding band now. And this is what we're gonna use to prep the surface. So we're gonna turn our speed back down to about 4,000 to 5,000 RPMs. I'm gonna work right up around that cuticle area, prepping that natural nail very gently, right around that cuticle area. And then I'm gonna feather my bit all the way through. And this is gonna help to remove those last little bits of that old gel polish that was on there. And you can see though, I still have a layer of that base gel on my natural nail. So I'm not filing on that natural nail at this point, okay? I do still wanna prep that natural nail though. So making sure that I go through, feather through that natural nail, just gently removing any last little lifted areas. Again, kind of turning my nail around here. You guys, when you're working on yourself, it is very challenging to get the proper angle, and it's even more challenging to get the proper angle and stay in camera. So you guys, I apologize if we're at a weird angle here, but just want to make sure that you guys are able to see what I'm doing, and I still need to make sure that my nails are cleaned up properly for my application. So it looks like I had just another little tiny little edge that was lifting right down in that corner. So I do want to make sure that I feather through and clean up any separated product. All right, I think we are good to go on that nail. I just want to check my edge one more time. And then I am going to grab my other bit here, and we're going to swap that one out. Again, this is our diamond cuticle square bit. And we're going to keep our E-file at about 4,000 RPMs. And I'm going to prep right up around that cuticle area. So right up in that cuticle, making sure I remove any of that excess protein growth, really making sure that my natural nail is going to be nice and clean and there's not going to be any debris. Now you guys, I don't know if you saw this or not, but I do have a little bit of kind of a callousy spot over here on my side. A lot of times I actually will use my electric file and that diamond bit to just gently remove a little bit of that dry skin. If you have any cuticle hangnails and things like that, that I do wait until the end of my service to clean those up. So that way I don't accidentally clip too far and maybe bump that with the E-file and cause myself to bleed. So always make sure that you save the nipping for the end. All right. So we've got our nail prepped, and set that off to the side. Okay, so at this point, I think I'm going to shorten this nail up just a little bit more with my file right there, and just kind of clean that up a little bit. Now, you guys, when I'm resculpting my nails, I do like to take down quite a bit of that natural nail. I don't like to have a lot of natural nail interfering with my form, especially on the sides when I'm going to be doing more of the almond shape like we've got here. I do like to take in and kind of taper in those edges a little bit. So that way we can create a little bit more of that almond shape without my natural nail getting in the way. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and dust that off. So now at this point, all we're going to do is just basically resculpt the nail. So we're going to clean our nail one more time with the swipe. Pump a little bit onto there. We're going to dust off that nail. Get that nice and cleansed. And then again, we're going to wait until that nail dries, and we'll use our protein bond. You guys, I'm sorry, I'm trying to see a couple of things in the chat here. Somebody's asking, what happens if you get acrylics on your skin? If you're working with either acrylic, hard gel, gel polish, whatever product you're working with, you always want to make sure that you're keeping it off the skin. If you're working with an acrylic brush, you guys, or a gel brush, but let me show you guys this. When you're working with an acrylic brush, a lot of times I see people and they actually use their brush and they wipe that product on the skin. Make sure that you're not doing that. That is how you're going to end up with allergic reactions and contact dermatitis and things like that. But as we're working here with our gel, I'm going to show you how to use that brush to keep that product off the skin, which is super, super important. Okay. Now, at this point, our nail is nice and clean. It's dry. We've cleansed it with the swipe. There's no more germs and bacteria. So we're going to go into our protein bond. Now, protein bond, like I was telling you guys earlier, if you were with us earlier, protein bond is our bonder, and it works kind of like a double-sided tape. So wherever you put your protein bond, that's where your product is going to want to stick. So I want to make sure that I'm keeping this just in contact with the natural nail. And you can see if we look very, very close, I leave just a tiny little ring of that natural nail showing. So that way I'm not actually getting that brush touching my cuticle. Okay. Even though this is an acid-free bonder, it doesn't have any of that methacrylic acid that a lot of primers have. You still want to make sure that you're keeping it off the skin because it is still a chemical. So whatever chemical you're working, you want to make sure to keep that off of your skin. Okay. Now on this nail, I'm going to be sculpting. So I'm going to grab one of my forms and I'm going to take that form. I'm going to put that little tab from the center. I'm going to put that right on the back. I'm going to pinch my tabs together on my form, nice and close and even together. And because we're going to be doing a little bit more of an almond shaped nail, I am going to pinch my form a little bit more at the end. And just kind of press that down, open that up a little bit more. And then I'm going to open up that top perforation. And we're going to get that form right up underneath my nail. Now, when I'm putting a form on a real client, I tend to start with that form at a slight downward angle. You guys, let me show you this. There we go. I start it at a slight downward angle, catch it right underneath that free edge, and then lift up. Now it's all stuck to my nail here, all stuck to my finger. Let me show you guys that one more time here. It's tricky when you only have one hand to work with. So catch that form right under the finger or under the nail and lift up on that end and rock that right up until that form is coming nice and straight out from the nail. Now, when I'm working on myself, I do tend to kind of look from a different direction because this nail, I don't know if you guys can tell on camera, but I have a nail that goes a little bit crooked. So when I put my forms on myself here, I actually look from this direction to make sure that my form is going to create a straight nail. Now, if we take a look at it from this direction, it actually looks like my form is crooked. But when I look at my nails from this direction, that is going to show me I'm actually going to sculpt out a nail that is straight. Okay, so when you're working on crooked nails, you do have to be very careful on how you line up that form. Because if I look at this, I have a really big tendency to want to move that form off to the right. But in order to make a nice straight nail and actually sculpt a straight nail, I want to look at my nails from this direction to make sure that my form is straight in line with my finger and it's not going to end up crooked. So I'm going to pinch this a little bit shorter because we're going to be creating a little bit of a shorter nail. I'm actually going to shorten these up. You can see on my other hand, I went a little bit shorter. I need some shorter nails these days. So we're going to shorten that form up, pinch that a little bit lower there. And I do want to make sure though that my form is right up flush under that natural nail, not puckering on the edge. So just want to straighten that out. And still looks like it's coming straight out. Okay, now when we're doing our dimensional nails, so like the purple one here that I've got, I'm actually going to start with my clear sculptor. So on our first nail, we were using our concealer pink. On this nail, we're going to start with a clear product because we want to build our free edge out in clear. So that way we're going to be able to actually see through and see that design from the underneath side as well. So I'm going to squeeze a little bit of my clear sculptor right onto that form. And I'm going to use the nozzle to just guide that into place from corner to corner. And at this point, I'm not squeezing out any more product. I'm just guiding that product into place. I think I'm going to squeeze out just a tiny little bit more so I can bring that extension down just a little bit, create just a little bit longer. And then I do use my brush for this technique as well. And one more time, I am going to make sure that I have my tile here so I can wipe my brush on, clean out my brush. So I'm going to use my brush and I'm going to just gently tuck that product, oops, sorry guys, gently tuck that product up into those corners, connecting with my natural nail. Same thing over on this side, bring that up into the corner, connect with my natural nail. I'm going to clean out my brush. I'm going to use the edge of my brush now and just basically straighten out that lower arch. Bring that right up to my nail. Okay, clean out my brush. Same thing on the other side. Use the edge of my brush to straighten out that lower arch. And then we'll get this into the light and we'll freeze this into place. I'm just going to bring that point down just a little bit. Now again, I'm going to get this into the light. I'm going to freeze this into place for about 30 seconds. So I want to make sure that this does set into place. And you guys, when I'm working on myself, you'll notice that as I'm holding my finger and working on my finger is bent. If I were to straighten out that finger, it would actually pop my form off. So I'm going to hold my form from underneath and then I'm going to hold that into the light like that. So that way my form isn't going to move and it's not going to create a gap or anything underneath my form. Okay, so just a little something different when you're working on yourself versus when you're working on a real person. Okay, so that free edge is frozen to place. It's not completely set, but again, every time we do a layer of gel, it is going to continue to cure. Now, the next product we're going to use on this nail is our base gel. We always want to make sure that we're using base gel on that natural nail. And on this one, we're using our clear base. Now, you guys, I use this one with my art a lot. So you can see there is a little bit of glitter in there, but it's not a big deal. It just kind of settles to the bottom and we can still use that clear gel on the top. So I'm just going to kind of just drag my brush through the surface of that gel, tap off the edge of my brush, and then we're going to come back and just like we did on our first nail, I'm going to brush that base gel all the way down the nail. Now notice that I don't start right at the cuticle area. Again, I'd like to start a little ways away, just like I was doing with the protein bond, so that I'm not flooding that product at the cuticle. And then I work back towards the cuticle, so I've got a nice thin application right at my cuticle area, and I'm not touching that product to the skin. If I need a little bit more of that base, I can grab just a little bit more and brush that through. But again, you guys, this is where I'm going to use some pressure with my brush. I want that base gel to really get adhered to that natural nail. And then again, I'm going to take just a little bit more of that base and I'm just going to run that right across where that natural nail connects to my free edge. So this way I have a really good insurance that my form is not going, or my nail is not going to crack off when I take that form off. Okay, so now at this point we are going to get this back into the light. This one I do want to make sure that I'm curing for at least a minimum of 30 seconds. Excuse me. So this way I am going to take my form off and I know that my product is cured enough to take my form off. Okay, when you're doing dimensional nails like we've got here, you can see all the way through. You can see that color all the way through. So I'm actually going to remove my form and then do the design and do the dimensional and do more of those opaque colors. So that way my product is going to cure all the way through. If I were to just leave this form on, there's a chance that your product may not cure all the way through because of those more opaque colors on the top. So I do want to make sure, take that form off. Now our gel is going to be able to cure from the top down, the bottom up, and also from the sides. Okay. Now, you guys, I am really excited because I've got a couple of our new products that are launching. So you guys already saw the dust collector, you saw the e-file. Those are all new that we're going to be launching November 1st. But I also have 3 of our new Ombre pat gels, and we're going to be working with these today. So super pretty colors. These ones are Spilled Secrets. We've got Old Soul Tracks, and we've also got Elastic Brute. Elastic? Elastic. You guys, you can read close enough. So what these are ombre gels, and I'm going to open this one up here. So if you unscrew the cap, you're going to see it's got the gel in the jar, but if we flip open the top, you're going to see there's a little mesh in the top of the jar. And what this is for is to help you get the proper amount of that gel onto our sponge. So I'm going to grab one of our little sponges. I've got my sponge claw tool. So you just press down the top of that. I'm going to grab one of those sponges. And actually, you guys, I'm going to grab another one and just show you another technique that sometimes works for me as well. But to start, I'm going to use that sponge. And let me come in a little closer here. So I've got blue, green, and purple. And I'm going to start by just taking my sponge and just kind of dabbing that right down into the blue. And I'm going to load up my sponge. You can see on the sponge, it's going to start to pick up that gel. And the reason for that mesh in the jar is to make sure that you don't overdo it. So you don't have too much of that color and too much of that gel paint on your sponge, to make it nice and easy. Okay, so now I'm just going to take my sponge, just start to dab that onto the nail, kind of blending out that product. And we'll take a little bit of the purple. Now, when I go between colors, so I'm going to go from the blue to the purple, I'm going to just kind of set my sponge down onto that tile, or if you have a table towel, you can use the table towel, just removing some of that excess. Actually, if I have a little lint-free wipe, I can use that to kind of dab off some of that excess. So that way, when I go into my second color, I'm not going to get that first color mixed in. So you don't want to contaminate your colors, okay? So we'll grab a little bit of that purple. We're going to just kind of blend that down in there. Now, when you're working around your sides, you want to make sure, turn that nail on the side so you can see exactly where your sponge is, or even up by that cuticle area. Turn that nail, turn that sponge so that you're not sponging onto the net or onto the skin, okay? Again, like we were talking about with any chemical, you want to make sure that you're keeping that off of the skin. So again, I'm going to clean out my sponge. I think I'm going to get a little bit more of that blue. Dab that in there, a little bit more of that blue, and we'll come up a little bit closer up to my cuticle area. Kind of blending that in. And right now, you guys, what I'm trying to create is just basically a background color. So you don't see all of that color on the finished nail, but it's just creating a background to apply our glitter to. Now, could you do this as a solid coverage on the nail? Absolutely. You can use these ombre gels how you like to create the designs you want to. But for today, I'm just using it as a little bit of a background color, okay? And I think we're gonna add in just a little bit of that green. So again, clean out my sponge a little bit here. But you guys, I'm actually going to switch out sponges. So I'm gonna take that one out. I've got a second sponge here, but what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna grab my scissors and I'm actually gonna cut that sponge in half because I wanna use, maybe I need a better scissors here, but that's okay. I wanna use just a small edge of that sponge. So I cut that in half. Now I've got a smaller piece because I don't want my green to overpower. I just want to do a little bit of a highlight with my green. So we'll take, kind of dab that into our gel paint there and just kind of tap that through. Maybe use that smaller sponge around the edges. And I think we're good. So I like that. Now, if you do get any of that gel on the skin, I've got just a tiny little bit right down on the edge there. I'm going to grab my onto the next polish remover and come out here. I'm going to pump a little bit of that, and you can see, there you go. I'm going to just pump a little bit of that onto the next polish remover into the top cup. I'm going to grab my Polish Perfector detail brush, and I'm going to use a little bit of that to clean up that nail. Now you want to make sure if you do get any of that gel on the skin, clean that up right away. Make sure that you're not putting that into the light and curing that onto the skin, okay? So again, at this point, if you are working on a full hand, if you're working on your real client, you could get that back into the light. Otherwise, for now, I'm just going to use that touch cure light, freeze this layer into place, and set that gel so that we can go on to our next layer, okay? So maybe just another 20-second cure on this. Again, just setting that into place. It is going to fully cure when we go into the light with our next step. So just freezing that into place. If you want your colors a little bit deeper, go ahead and add a second coat of the color. So let me grab a little bit more of that green. I'm going to dab that through the center right there. Oh yeah, that's going to look good. So a little bit more bold. I'm going to grab my other sponge and make sure that's nice and clean. All right, we'll grab a little bit more of that blue and maybe dab that a little bit up closer to my cuticle area. And guys, I'm just kind of slowing this down, making sure that I'm getting as close as I can to that cuticle, but trying to keep that product off the skin. And again, if I need to, I can use my brush to clean up around those edges. Oops, look like I got a little bit of that onto the nail. All right. So I may just go through one more time, getting that to kind of blend out a little bit more. And then we'll grab a little bit more of that purple, blending that down in as well. Okay, so I like this a little bit more bold. And one more time to clean up around that cuticle. Make sure that you don't have that on the skin. And then we'll go ahead and cure that. Now again, pop that back into the light for, I would say, a minimum of 30 seconds. Make sure that your gels aren't in front of the light. So make sure to give those, close those up. I'm going to pop that into the light. And while that is in the light curing, I'm going to grab my glitters, because now we're going to add some really pretty bright glitters to this nail. So the colors that I'm going to be using, we've got Funky Papa, and we've got Built Different. You guys, once my hand's out of the light, I'll show you what these actually look like. And we've got Baby Zombie, and we've got a chunkier Mylar, and this one is called Chonky Chonks. So those are the colors that we're going to be using. We're also going to be using our base gel. So that same base gel that we were using earlier. Let me go ahead and open up my glitters. So again, we've got Funky Papa, which is beautiful blue, green, teal. You guys, camera does not do these colors justice by any means. And then Built Different is that same color, but it's a little bit chunkier. And then our purple was Baby Zombie. So that really beautiful, bright purple. And this is a smaller cut glitter, so a little bit finer glitter. And then our Chonky Chonks Mylar is going to be really pretty. It's going to give us a lot more kind of a glow to the nail. All right, so our base layer is cured out. We're going to go ahead and apply one thin coat of our base gel. And we're going to brush that on from cuticle to free edge. And you guys, when you put that color or that clear over the top, it really makes those colors pop. So even if as you're doing your ombre, doing that color blend underneath, and you think, well, maybe it's not looking quite so bright, that's okay. Once you get that color over the surface, it's going to really make it pop. And if you do get any product on the skin, make sure to clean that off right away. I am going to grab, you guys, I'm just going to be using my art brush, and this is an old liner brush that is just kind of frayed out. I'm going to use that brush to pick up my glitters, and I think I'm going to start with a little bit of that Funky Papa. So just touching my brush down into that glitter, and then I'm just going to set that right down into the wet gel. So wherever I want that color, I can just kind of blend that in. And I'm going to clean out my brush, just kind of wipe that on my table. Let's grab a little bit of that purple. And maybe bring that down in there and just kind of blending my colors together wherever I feel like I need a little bit of extra color. Yeah, maybe I think we'll take a little bit more purple up top there, blend it into that blue. All right, I think I'm liking that so far, and that's going to kind of give me a base color, but let's grab a few of those little chunkier pieces. Let's see if we still have a little of that base gel to set those into. All right, so those are going to set right down in there. At this point, I think I'm going to freeze this layer into place. So again, I'm going to use that touch cure light, or you could pop the nails back into the light if you're working on a real client. And just set those into place so that way we can do another layer over the top. And again, you guys, I keep telling you that as we do these layers, we're just kind of freezing them into place. They do continue to cure as we are working, okay? So don't have to worry about them not curing, just freezing that into place so that it's going to set the glitter into the nail. All right, we're going to do another coat of our base gel. Okay, again, we're going to brush that over, making sure we get from cuticle to free edge, just giving us a nice tacky surface to apply those glitters to. And you guys, if you're enjoying our lesson today, make sure to hit that subscribe button, join our community, get free education, and get some creative ideas. All right, just going to set down a few more of those chunkier pieces, and I'm going to grab my tile again, because when I work with, you guys, I'm going to back the camera out here. When I'm working with my chunkier mylar, I actually like to just kind of take a little pinch of that and just kind of run it through my fingers onto my tile. So this way I can almost pick and choose which pieces I'm going to use on my nail. So this way I can see a little bit better on how that's going to go onto my nail. Okay. All right, so we'll just take the same brush. I'm going to grab a few of those little pieces and again set that down into that wet gel. And you guys, I know a lot of times when you're doing your dimensional nails like this, you look at it and you're like, oh, what the heck is going on that nail? But once you get all of your colors in there and then you cap everything, you file it out, everything is going to look absolutely gorgeous and it's going to have a ton of light reflection. And that's what I love this Mylar for. The Mylar really gives a lot of light reflection. So as I'm kind of turning my nail like that, you can see all of those places where that Mylar is really just going to glow. All right, so just setting those pieces down into the wet gel. If you feel like you need any more color on there anywhere, any of the other glitters, you can go ahead and add that in to that tacky surface. All right, I think we're good there. I'm going to freeze that into place one more time, either in the full UV LED light or with the touch cure light. And then we'll go ahead and cap this nail. Now at this point, you guys, we've been doing several layers, but we still don't have a lot of thickness. We do need to build up some structure to this nail like I've got on this one. So we've got a little bit more of an arch here. And we also need to seal in those glitters so that when we do file, we're not going to file those glitters off. Now, at this point, I usually like to go back through with one more layer of my base gel just to give myself a little bit more of a smoother surface over the glitter so that when I do cap the whole nail, my product is going to flow a little bit easier. So by having this extra layer of base gel on these, kind of sealing in those glitters, it's going to allow my product to just kind of flow down the length of the nail a little bit more, and make it easier for me to seal the rest of the glitter. Okay, so again, just kind of freezing that into place, setting that into place, and then we'll go ahead and cap the nail. Now, when I do my dimensional nails like this and I cap them and I seal them, I actually like to use our Build Pink. Now the Build Pink, you guys, it's not like the concealer pink that we used before. So two different products. We've got Build Pink and Concealer Pink. Concealer Pink is like what I've got on my thumb here, and it's what I've got on that first nail that we did. So when I'm doing my dimensional nails, I like to use the Build Pink because it's a translucent pink. I'm going to just squeeze a little bit of this out here so you guys can actually see. It's not opaque, but it's not a very bright pink. It's just going to have a little bit of a pink tint to it, and I guess I need to replace this. But it just has a little bit of a pink tint to it, and that's going to help to really just brighten up our nail. So it really makes those colors pop. And we're just going to basically squeeze a little bit of this right through the cuticle area. You guys, I didn't realize I was as low on my product as I am. So we're going to squeeze that right up into our cuticle area. I'm using circular motions just like I was using with my brush to move that product up into my cuticle. And then we'll just kind of work that product down the length of the nail, squeezing out a little bit more product as I go, as I need to, bringing that product down the length. Now you guys, I want to make sure that I'm capping my glitters, but I'm not building up so much structure where I'm going to have a lot of product to file off. So just kind of gently going through a little bit of a bubble there. I want to make sure that I pop that bubble. And I think we've got enough product all the way. I'm going to grab my brush, and if I need to, I'm going to use my brush to tuck that product a little bit closer up into the cuticle area, down those sides a little bit, come back to the other side, down those sides a little bit, and we'll bring that all the way through. So now at this point, we've got a little bit more structure. I'm going to get that into the light, and I'm going to just pop that into the light for maybe about 5 seconds or so, because when you're working with the thicker gels, like the Build Pink or the Clear Sculptor or the Concealer Pink, these can build up a little bit of heat with them. There is a chemical reaction, and the light is what starts that chemical reaction. So you may feel a little bit of a heat spike if you put a lot of product on there and then you leave it in there for the full time. So usually what I like to do is I'll, just like I did, I put my nails in there for about 5 seconds, take them back out, and then it's going to stop that heat spike from happening. Then you pop the nail back in, and then you're going to cure that for the full 60 seconds. Okay, and I think I just did a 30-second cure, so we need to do another 30 seconds on there. And you guys, we're not going to go through all of the filing and finishing today. If you need to see how the nails are filed out, you can definitely check out the rest of our YouTube channel here. You can see all of our different videos on how to file and finish the nails, but we're running short on time, so I just want to make sure that you guys do see the final look of the designs that we created. So I do have those nails exactly how I had done on these two on my other finished hand. But when those nails do come out of the light, they are going to have a tacky surface. So you want to make sure that you are using your swipe, just like we were using before. Take a little pump of that and cleanse off that tacky surface before you do your filing and finishing. Okay, you would go through, file up those nails, and you're always going to finish the set with a little bit of cuticle oil to make sure that you rehydrate so that you don't have dry cuticles like I do. So always make sure to finish with a little bit of that cuticle oil and massage that in for the final look. All right, you guys, thank you so much for joining us. I know we did not get to do our top coat chant in the chat. If you want to do the top coat chant in the chat, you are welcome to do that to finish up our nails here. Or maybe we'll just do the cuticle oil chant in the chat today. So if you enjoyed the design, make sure to type in cuticle oil or something fun in the chat. Throw some hearts in the chat if you enjoyed our stream today. And also make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can always come back and join us on our days where we are providing education. And you guys, I hope to see you back at another live stream. Thank you so much for joining us today and have a wonderful